Good afternoon, everybody. It's 5 p.m. Do you know where your event space is? We are right here welcoming back Imma Barrera. Imma, welcome back to the event space. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. And thank you for having me here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Imma is going to be talking about an artist in residence, specifically Glacier National Park. So if you haven't already, Imma's been here a couple of times and we've had the pleasure to hear her speak. You're in for a treat. It's always great information, great images. So get excited about it. If there are any questions you do want to get over to her, you know the drill over here. If you're on Zoom, you can use the Q&A section. Otherwise, if you're on Facebook, Vimeo, use the comment section and we'll make sure to get them over to her. But otherwise, without further ado, I'm not really necessary here. Everyone came to see Imma. So thanks again for being here. We appreciate it. And I'll see you back in a little bit.
So first of all, I would like to thank Scott and all the members of the B&H event space for giving me this opportunity to present my work again. This time is about Glacier National Park. I also wanted to thank you, the audience, for being here. If it's now or maybe later, if you watch the replay, I really appreciate you being here. And I hope that you find this presentation informative, that you learn about the park, and make you really wanting to go there, and you also are inspired, maybe learning more about some of the areas of the park or learning some about the type of photography I shoot. So let me introduce myself and my company. My name is Imma Barrera. You can call me Imma, and I'm the founder and CEO of Imma Photography, and I'm based in New Jersey. This is my website, my email, my social media information. If any questions you may have after this presentation, you are free to email me, reach out to me through Facebook, Instagram, Vero. And any way you want, reach out to me for any questions you may have. So my background, so you get to know me. I'm a biologist. I actually have a PhD in molecular biology. And I spent many years in research studying microorganisms and taking pictures of them under the microscope. So photography was for me already a tool for my research studies, but still I'm a passionate photographer. I love taking pictures of wildlife and nature, anything that has to do somehow related with biology. I'm also an educator. I teach as a professor, microbiology here in New Jersey, and I teach also photography through my company. Some basic courses through the Parks and Recreation Department in my town, workshops that include landscapes, moon alignments, long exposures, things like that. For night photography, this is mostly the kind of workshops I like to teach. I have several. And I just listed here, and just because of this presentation, I wanted to offer a discount code until December 31st, basically for those workshops who already, the early bird special is finished, to extend the early bird special if somebody's interested in signing up for those. In March and April is going to be Assateague National Seashore in Maryland. In April, the Outer Banks in North Carolina, Alabama Hills and Trona Pinnacles in California, also in April. Actually, that should be in May. Sorry, that's a typo there. It's in May, around New Moon, basically. Sedona and Monument Valley in Arizona in June. Also, available on Amazon. My very first book was actually the result of joining the B&H Portfolio Development Pro 2018, and is The Stars, the Moon, and the Sun in the New Jersey, New York area. That program was excellent. B&H does a very good job of helping photographers and working with photographers. And my project was shooting the stars and the moon, and that's the book. In addition, I have a series of books, The Photographic Journeys Through National Parks, and they are just going to cover my residencies. So I have published An Artist in Residence, Capitol Reef National Park, and I gave already a presentation about this book here at B&H Event Space last year. Today, I'm going to be talking about the artist in residence, Glacier National Park. And then hopefully next year is going to be the astronomer in residence, Grand Canyon National Park. For the Grand Canyon, they have two branches of their program. One is an artist in residence, and it's going to be anything that has to do with arts, your standard arts, even landscapes and things like that. But anything that has to do for the night sky, even if you're a photographer or a painter or a poet or an astronomer or a teacher, that's specifically under the umbrella of the astronomer in residence program. Okay, so the agenda for today's talk is going to be talking a little bit about the Under the Night Sky project, because that's the project that basically I submitted for my residencies. Then I will go and start with introduction of the Glacier National Park and tell you a little bit about the park. So you get to see places that you can go and visit, or areas you can go and photograph depending on your interest. And I will cover astrophotography because that's basically my project, landscapes and wildlife. Okay, so Under the Night Sky project is basically a project to raise awareness about light pollution and ways to protect the environment. And the goal is a book, each chapter being a different national park, capturing those night skies, nightscapes in the different parks, and these were selected based on their different ecosystems. So as I said, this was the project I applied to all those residencies because the book has different chapters for different parks. And I have been given 4 residencies so far. Capitol Reef was the first, Acadia, Glacier, and the Grand Canyon. An artist in residence program is actually very competitive. It's like writing a grant. For those who have been in academia, they might be familiar with the grant process. You have to have a project, you have to have a rationale, you have to explain the why you have to be selected. There's a limited number of openings for those residencies, and they select based on their needs. So as I said, they can be any type of artist. They can be poets, writers, people who make scarves. They can actually apply for those residencies. So in 2021, I was selected for the artist in residence at Glacier National Park. Glacier usually has 2 to 3 openings for the residencies, June, July, and sometimes August. And you have to tell them ahead of time which period you want to be there. I chose July, and I was very lucky, fortunate I chose because the main road that traverses the park, most of the time is actually not open because of the snow. They open it late in June, so had I chosen June, it would have been difficult for me to go to the places I wanted to be. That's okay if your goal is to shoot snowy landscapes and you can do cross-country skiing, you're gonna have plenty of opportunities. But for me, July made more sense. And another thing to take into account, if you are an astrophotographer and you want to be there in July, actually, if you're any kind of photographer, is that what we consider night in astrophotography in July is only an hour and a half shooting time, because we are so close to the North Pole. Montana is high up, close to Canada, that July has very long days and very short nights. So this is something you need to be aware of when you're planning a visit to Glacier. When is the best time of the year for whatever you want to do there? Because as I said, coming from New Jersey, you don't really think about having an hour and a half to shoot. You have plenty more hours to shoot at night. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Glacier. So Glacier is a big wilderness area of about 1,583 square miles in northwest Montana on the US-Canada border. It's touching Waterton Lakes National Park in Canada. So Glacier is known by his beautiful scenery, his wonderful landscape, and it's the glaciers. So there's a period that study the experts in climate called the Little Ice Age that happened between 14th and the 19th century, where basically the winters were bitterly cold and to the point that it was called a Little Ice Age, and it was regional. It was in the North Atlantic region only. So around 1850, they counted the number of glaciers that were in glacier, and they were defined about a size bigger than 0.1 square kilometers. They had about 80 glaciers that would fall under that definition. In 1966, there were 35 named glaciers. In 2015, there are about 26, and the number is shrinking. So that's something to be aware of. So the park is traversed by the Going to the Sun Road that goes from West Glacier to East Glacier entrances, and it crosses the continental divide at Logan Pass, which is the highest point of the road. This road was completed in 1932, and it's considered an engineer wonder, and you will see when you're there that it was a difficult road to build. It's very narrow, there's not that much space, and it's steep at some areas. And because it was built in 1932, nowadays an additional challenge is our cars are now bigger. And so it's now even narrower, so you need to drive very carefully there. The park includes the Lewis and Livingston mountain ranges that belong to the Rocky Mountains. And there are about more than 700 miles of hiking trails. So it's a hiker's paradise, it's a landscape paradise. There are about 130 named lakes, more than 1,000 species, and 71 species of mammals. Not animals, not vertebrates, mammals. And the largest grizzly population in the lower 48 states. There's also the black bear, and there's also other big mammals that I'll show you. So Glacier, together with Waterton Lakes National Park, were declared the first World International Peace Park. They're also UNESCO Biosphere Reserve and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And in 2021, August 2021, and I was there July, they were actually recognized, certified as a Gold International Darkest Sky by the Darkest Sky Association. And as I said, it was great because I was there, so I got to celebrate with them this certification. And it's actually an achievement because getting certified by the International Darkest Sky Association requires effort. It's not something that is just given for granted. It's just you have to do a lot of changes to the light fixtures and the environment and the towns around, if possible, to be certified as a dark sky. This map of Glacier is Canada. So you can see the size of Glacier and the size of the Canadian Waterton Lake National Park. And now if we zoom in, this is basically the area where the Going to the Sun Road traverses the park. You can enter through West Glacier here at this lower part of the picture and ready for to the Sun Road. First, the visitor center you find is the Akbar Visitor Center, and this is the Akbar Village. Here you can find hotels, small hotels, restaurants, there's the campground, picnic areas, souvenir shops, and also you can take the boat tours in Lake McDonald, and also you can rent kayaks. So continuing north on the Going to the Sun Road along the share of Lake McDonald, towards the top part, you'll find the McDonald Lodge, which is basically this alpine looking lodge where you can find again restaurants and a store and other conveniences. Like about 2 to 3 minute walk from the lodge, that's where my cabin was. I had access to a log cabin just for me with all amenities, meaning a kitchen, a living room, a bed, area I can picnic and have a fire, and if I wanted to. It was isolated because I was just by myself, surrounded by trees, the water of the lake. Once I had a black bear coming and visit, but I was within 3-minute walk of the lodge, so anything I needed, I could go to the lodge. Continue up north on the Going to the Sun road. At the very edge of the lake, that's where you find the McDonald Creek, which feeds the Lake McDonald. Going up, then you continue and you'll find a lot of overlooks of beautiful areas, the McDonald waterfalls. And there's also an area here where you will find a parking area so you can hike the Trail of the Cedars Nature Trail and the Avalanche Lake Trail, which are very popular, and these parking spots get full immediately. So wherever you want to hike, you have to get to places early because otherwise the parking lots are full. Way to park. They have a ticketed entry, and thank God they have a ticketed entry because you still sometimes don't find parking spots to go hiking. So if you go to the Avalanche Lake Trail, you reach the Avalanche Lake in this area here by the road, and you have, and this is the Bear Hat Mountain, and this would be the Hidden Lake, and I'll talk about the Hidden Lake shortly. Driving up again, you reach an area that is called the Loop, where basically there's a sharp, very sharp turn, and you start then driving east. When you reach this area, you start getting close to the tree line, and there's going to be beautiful overlooks as well. All this area from the Loop basically to St. Mary Visitor Center, as soon as you are above the tree line and you have an overlook or something like that, is a nice location to shoot the Milky Way, because you can see you will be facing south, so you can find good compositions to shoot the Milky Way. So here in this area of the road is where you have the Logan Pass Visitor Center, and it's ideal for any type of photography, landscape, wildlife, hiking. You can go and hike from the visitor center all the way to the Hidden Lake if the trail is open. There's also here the Garden Wall, the Highline Trail. There's lots of trails. This is where the Continental Divide is, and this is the highest point of the road. So now you start going downhill from Logan Pass, and you have several overlooks here and hiking trails, and you eventually reach St. Mary Lake. Also, this is a beautiful area for photography. When you reach this towards the end of the road, there are some meadows here which are excellent to see wildlife. And then you reach St. Mary's Visitor Center. And you can when you're out of the park, you can either go north or go south. This is the Blackfeet Indian Reservation. If you go north, you can go back in the park, taking the Mani Glacier entrance, and you'll reach a series of lakes, more hiking trails. This is also spectacular. I really recommend this area if you have a chance to make it there. Unfortunately, when I was there, this road was under construction, so it was even more challenging to get there, and they were also repairing the road at night, which made it even more challenging for me because it would have taken forever for me to drive there at night. So yes, it was a long, long line to get there because of the construction, but it's worth it. Here you'll have the the Mani Glacier and beautiful hiking trails. From St. Mary, you can drive south, and you can then reach possibly the most remote part of the park, which is the Two Medicine entrance. And I'll talk about this a little bit later as well. So here, north, in the side, closer then to the Canadian border, you have the Livingstone Range. And south of the Going to the South road, you have the Lewis Range. Remember, I mentioned those are the two ranges that are part of the Rocky Mountains. Okay, so this is a little bit of trying to help you orient yourself. I'm now going to go like if I'm driving, when they're going to the Sun Road, to the different locations to shoot the Milky. One of the things in July to take into account, if you also want to shoot landscapes or night photography, is that in the summer it's very common that fires in Montana. These are natural wildfires. It's a way for the ecosystems to regenerate themselves. But again, there's a smoke, there's going to be haze, and that's going to affect your photography. Also, when I was there were wildfires in Oregon and California, and the smoke went all the way actually to New Jersey, because I remember seeing pictures of people shooting the moon, and it was intense red moon. And in Montana was even worse. Basically, there was no way for me to shoot the stars at night. They were just covered with the smoke and the haze. But it made for beautiful sunsets. But this is something to consider, that wildfires can happen in the summer. So let's go through the road, driving in the road, and I can show you some of the spots for astrophotography and tell you a little bit about those spots. The first spot is basically where McDonald Creek and Lake McDonald meet. This is the light pollution coming from West Glacier and Akbar Village. And these lights here on the shore is the Lake McDonald Lodge. So you can see the type of vegetation, very tall trees. You're not above the tree line, so you have to look for areas where there's clearance so that you can capture the Milky Way. This next stop is after the loop. The loop is that place where the road makes a sharp turn, starts driving east. So now the overlooks are facing south. And here I'm pretty close to the tree line. And this is Hanging Valley. This snow ice area is Hanging Valley. This is Mount Oberlin. This is Mount Clemens. And this is Mount Cannon. All of them are part of the Lewis Range. And you can see here this white line, which is basically the Bird Woman Falls, were dropped about 492 feet from the valley into wherever they go. And you can see the Milky Way, and this is also light pollution, possibly coming from the West Glacier area. One thing also to remember if you're shooting astrophotography at Glacier is if you shoot by yourself, just be very close to your car. It's much better to shoot with people because there are grizzlies. And you don't want to have a night encounter with a grizzly because they can smell you, they can hear you, they can see you. And we cannot do any of those things. So you have to take into account safety first. So go with a group of people because it helps. It makes you feel really a lot more comfortable. The park does an excellent job of training their volunteers, an artist in residence is like a volunteer, handling grizzlies. They train us, they give us the bear spray, they also give us one of the park rangers radios, so we can always, in case of an emergency, call the ranger. We also have GPS, like Garmin GPS. They give us a lot of ways for us to communicate, especially if you're at night and you are by yourself. If you're a resident, you might be by yourself. Sometimes I did go with people and rangers. That make my life a lot easier because you feel a lot safer when there's people with you. This is my favorite place within the Going to the Sun Road to shoot the Milky Way. I was with people, I had rangers, so I felt a lot more comfortable. This is Logan Pass. You can see I'm away from the parking lot now. I'm not at an overlook. I'm just in the hiking trail that goes to the hidden lake. And then I was able to start shooting at different locations along the trail. This is Mount Reynolds. You'll see Mount Reynolds several times. And this is the Milky Way. And it's so dark, it's so beautiful here. This is also Mount Reynolds, a different composition going up the trail. You can see now the flowers, you can still see the snow. When I arrived, this trail was closed for two reasons. There were grizzly activity and snow, and therefore it was not easy to hike. So luckily, at some point, the grizzly activity was mostly by the lake, hidden lake, and they opened half of the trail. And then I was able to start shooting. But most of the times, this trail is actually closed because the grizzlies like fish, and Hidden Lake has lots of fish. And this is Hidden Lake overlook. And you can see Hidden Lake and Bear Hat Mountain. Again, if you go here, you hiking, go with people. Because after this, this trail is closed. Now I'm in a different place, going now towards St. Mary, and this is Jackson Glacier. This is one of the few glaciers that you can see from the road. And but it gives you a beautiful view of the mountains around the glacier and the Milky Way and some clouds. I have not introduced you to the Milky Way yet, so let me do it in this picture. This area here where you have this bright star, that's Antares, and that's the Rho-Fuki complex. Here, this bright portion of the Milky Way, that's the galactic core. That's the most photographed part of the Milky Way. This here is shaped kind of like a horse. You see the head, you see the legs. That's the Dark Horse Nebula. This portion here is also called the Pipe Nebula. And here in pink, we have the Lagoon Nebula. I will give you some information about my shooting style. If you have any questions, technical questions about astrophotography, please ask so we can discuss them during the Q&A portion. I don't want to give information to those people who are not interested now, but I don't want to not give it for those who want to know. So ask me the questions you want to, and I will explain them. This is one of my favorite shots as well. This, because it has actually not that much to do with photography, it has to do with a movie, The Shining by Stanley Kubrick, one of my favorite directors. If you have seen The Shining or you have heard of it, or you can Google it, the first image you have of in the movie is this location. This is St. Mary's Lake, this is the Lewis Range, and in the middle they have this little island called Wild Goose Island. So this was also a challenging shot, believe it or not. Apart from getting car trails that were ruining my picture because I will get a lousy reflection in the water, not something I really like, so I had to clone them out. I set up my camera. I wanted to shoot for star trails because it was almost pretty close to twilight. And at some point, it's like, I'm exhausted, I'm going to bed. I packed everything, I went back to the car, and then like nothing, like maybe 15 feet or 20 feet from the car, there was a gigantic, at night they look big, elk, and male elk. And I'm like, well, time to go, definitely. I don't know what would have been had I stayed longer because, I mean, yes, the elk was not paying attention, but you don't want to scare an elk at night either. So yes, be always careful if you shoot at night in areas like this because wildlife is there. And Glacier has a lot of wildlife, which is good for wildlife photographers. And this is St. Mary's Visitor Center. So this is now the other exit or entrance of the park. And I love the architecture of this building. It really matches very well the surroundings. Behind this is the Blackfeet Indian Reservation. And here you can see a little bit, you can almost guess it. This is where they have their permanent telescope. They have a huge telescope connected with computers and TV screens. So where they run their night sky festival, they run it either here or by the Agar Village campgrounds. And they have a lot of sessions that they use the telescope and the screens so they can show you the different constellations and they teach you about the different constellations. This is really a dark area. And I gave a presentation here during one of the sessions for the Night Sky Festival, but it was really excellent to learn from the rangers and see up close in those TV screens the different constellations. So about the astrophotography, I shoot a little bit of background. At this point, my camera was not astro modified. I was shooting with the Nikon D750 and the 14 to 24 millimeter Sigma lens, art lens 2.8 aperture. So I shoot I stack my pictures for the sky for these pictures. Because I only had like an hour and a half to shoot, I did not track my images because I didn't want to, I wanted to optimize my time as much as possible, make it simple and easy. Because if I start setting trackers and then shooting foregrounds that are not blurred because they're blurred with the tracker, it would have taken me a lot longer and I would have missed opportunities. And thankfully I did that because I told you later, the haze and smoke from Oregon and California reached Montana, and that was it as far as astrophotography. So I stack my skies and I blend the foregrounds. But most of these foregrounds I also shot at night. They're not blue hour blends, just because I was going from place to place, trying to be as efficient as I could. Okay, as I said, any questions, technical questions about my technique or anything, I'll answer during the Q&A, but I wanted just to give you a bit of information there as well. So when the smoke and the haze arrived, I switched gears and started shooting landscapes and wildlife. The advantage of the smoke and the haze is that those sunsets were really, really intense. I organized the landscapes by areas as well to help you locate where these shots were taken. This is the Akbar village. This is an iconic picture. This is my version of this iconic location where you have the Lake McDonald, you have the mountain ranges here. I'm guessing these are Livingstone, and you have these very colorful rocks. So as I said, you may have seen these red rocks in many pictures from Glacier. This is closer to the lodge now. I just went down to the beach, and these are some of those colorful rocks. And again, you see now the lake and the mountains in the back. This is by the lodge. I just wanted to show you this picture. This building is the store, basically. That's where you can get some food, sandwiches, wine, huckleberry margarita, things like that. The huckleberry margarita was really, really good. And these are basically the mountains, but I wanted you to show you the vegetation. I'm not at above the tree line, but you can also see the size of the trees there. This is behind the McDonald Lodge. This is basically where you find the boat tours of the Lake McDonald that tell you about the story of the lake and the place and all that information. The funny thing, they were talking about the artist in residence program when we they were passing by my cabin lodge, and I'm there like, and not to the left, it's the artist in residence. But anyway, it was kind of weird. And then people will actually tell me, oh, we had, because I would meet people when hiking, I would say like, oh, you're the one who had the cabin with the lake. Anyway, that felt kind of weird. Anyway, you can see here in the mountains that you can see kind of like naked trees. And that's a result of several wildfires. As I said before, wildfires are part of Glacier. It's part of the renewal of the ecosystems there. Some plants need those fires in order for them to spread out and everything. So you'll be surprised because this is a very extensive area. And when this wildfire took place, it cost a lot of money to contain these fires, because you can see how close it was to areas where people stay, close to the lake. And this is the same spot I showed you at night, but this is during the day. So over here, we will have a cat. Here we will have the lodge. And you see here, there's like something that looks like a pole. Well, that's not a pole, that's somebody fishing. And I just mention it just to give you an idea of the dimension of a human being in comparison to the trees by the lake. Now, the next pictures are going to be taken either from overlooks or from some of the hiking trails of going to the Sun Road, past McDonald Lake, Lake McDonald. The first picture I'm going to show you is Avalanche Lake. You can access the Avalanche Lake Trail from a big parking lot and then the Trail of the Cedars to Avalanche Lake. And this is the very first moment you see the lake. Most people take this picture, it's classic of this trail. And then they might go a little bit along the path to some of the beaches so they can play with the water, swim, although it's very cold. The classic touristy things. But if you continue that trail even farther, most people don't do it because it doesn't look as well maintained just because it's not as traveled. But if you continue that trail farther, you get to the other end of the lake and it looks actually very different. Here is where the melting ice from the Sperry Glacier basically goes down the mountain and feeds this lake. So this is basically where the waters from Sperry Glacier meet the lake. And you can see how different the view is. One of the advantages of having such long days is that it gives you time to hike and move around and take pictures at golden hour and things like that. And you still have time to basically head back. So there's some advantages of those very long days and very short nights. This is now Heaven's Peak. This is the Livingstone Range, and Heaven's Peak is one of the highest one there. This is just very close to the loop that turn on the Going to the Sun road, and Heaven's Peak is about a little bit less than 9,000 feet of elevation. But I like how the contrast of the snow, the texture of the rocks, the green of the trees, melting waters, and then in this example, the drama of the sky at sunset. This shot I almost didn't get because you could tell already that was going to be spectacular colors because of the haze. And I couldn't find a parking spot in all those overlooks. I kept on driving and driving. It's like, I want to park somewhere, someone lend me some spot. I finally got some tiny spot where I just left the car, got out of the car, grabbed my camera, shot, went back. And you can tell already the sun was setting behind the mountains. This is the Livingstone Range. And I made it on time, but I missed opportunities before where the sun was a little bit higher and there were some more clouds where I just couldn't find a parking spot because, as I said, these are overlooks. This road is very narrow. You can't simply park in the middle of the road. I mean, the other people are going to kill you. There's goats around. So, yeah, I got lucky at the end. Logan Pass area, as I said, is my favorite part of the entire Going to the Sun road because there's the hiking trails, the night photography, the wildlife. This shot was taken before reaching Logan Pass. That's where the Continental Divide is. This is Mount Clemens. I like how the moon is kind of nested in this U-shape part of the mountain. I didn't want to zoom in, although I could have, because I wanted to capture the colors of the rocks and the textures of the mountains and the piece of snow or ice. And this was shot from a car. I was not driving, but the person wasn't driving that fast because it was crowded. So I was able to handhold my shot and shoot from the window. This is from the Hidden Lake Trail. And this is again, Mount Reynolds. You shot 2 night shots before of Mount Reynolds. And this is just going along hiking to the overlook. And this is now a day shot of the overlook. And exactly the same position that I was at night, I was at day. But here now you get to see the lake better and the Bear Hat Mountain. This is a panel of the overlook shot in another day. This is part of the trail that is closed, that goes down to the lake. And I said it was closed because of bear activity, grizzlies. They love fishing here. Most of the time, this trail is closed. Now we move into St. Mary area. And this is the classical view from St. Mary Lake with the Wild Goose Island here and the mountains peaks of Lewis Range. Now we're going to Many Glacier. And to remind you, you go out of St. Mary, you go north and you hit the Many Glacier Road. Hopefully there's no construction since then. I don't know how long it takes, but you go to this parking lot here, and this is the iconic view of Mani Glacier with the Swift Current Lake. That's where the Mani Glacier Lodge is. It's a beautiful lodge, Swiss Alpine style of lodge. It's just beautiful. They have a piano and everything. If you continue hiking in this area, you reach Lake Josephine. If you continue hiking, you can go to Grinnell Glacier, which is one of the glaciers you can access through a day hike. And this here is basically where the Grinnell Point and Grinnell Mountain is. And that's, as I said, the iconic view from the lodge, Grinnell Point, and that's Swift Current Lake. And I continued hiking one day. When I started hiking, there were no clouds. And in a matter of maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, when I was hiking from clouds arrived, no clouds, clouds arrived, then the lightning. I was able to capture the lightning, and then the rain, and then I head back. And as soon as I reached the lodge, it was sunny again, no clouds, all gone. So weather can be very unpredictable in this area, so that you guys know. This is Lake Josephine, and I believe this is Grinnell Glacier. Two Medicine area is the most remote as well, but it's really worth going there because you see there also an iconic glacier shot. So from St. Mary, you drive south. It's a longer drive. You eventually reach the road that takes you to the lower Two Medicine Lake. You enter the park. You have hiking trails that are beautiful. There's only a park ranger station. There's no visitor center, and there's the campground. This is the Two Medicine Lake. This is the Sinopa Mountain, and I'm just pointing it out so you can see the relationship of the mountain to the park, to the campground, because this is the view that you get there. And this is Sinopa Mountain, and it's just, I said, it's an iconic location. You might have seen these pictures of this, both Mani, Grinnell Point, and Sinopa Mountain before. And that's it for the landscapes. Wildlife, it was absolutely amazing how easy it was to see wildlife. I think only Teddy Roosevelt have I been able to see lots of wildlife. In that case, it was buffaloes. I actually went to Alaska. I've been to Yellowstone. I've been to the Grand Tetons. I hiked following grizzly poop because I wanted to meet Boo Boo and Yogi. I love Yogi Bear. So I always wanted to take a picture of Boo Boo. And I never managed to until I reached Glacier. So finally, one of my dreams of taking a picture of a grizzly happened. It took me a while, but it was in Glacier. Now let me go through some of this, very few of the 71 mammals you can find over there. This is a golden mantle ground squirrel, looks like a chipmunk, but you can tell it's not because it has white fur in this area. They're very cute. They follow you around just because they are used to be fed by humans, which is not a good idea. If you care about animals, don't feel wildlife. Sorry, I had to say it. Here he is finishing his Cheeto, which is not precisely a healthy processed food you will give to a poor little ground squirrel. He was begging for more. I just said no, and I took his picture. But he does look cute. This is a Colombian ground squirrel, and they reminded me a lot of prairie dogs, and you might see why. They're very social animals. They live in burrows underground, and they stand up like the prairie dog looks, like watching around. The prairie dogs do the same thing too. But as I said, they're Colombian ground squirrels. This is a golden hour. These are like two juveniles, like toddlers, just playing with each other. They were all playing around because they were born in the spring, and now it was early summer for Montana. And they have this way of touching each other's cheeks, like a way to greet themselves. So they play, and they're not really kissing. They're just acknowledging each other's presence. And this is why I said they do remind me of prairie dogs, because the way they stand up and looking around on top of their burrow, that's where burrow is. Basically, he's just staying out and just eating a peanut. This is a howdy marmot, also known as a weasel pig, because they have a very loud, high-pitched warning. That's how they communicate, and it's really loud to the point that it just like, for a second, it's like, what's that? And then it's like, this little guy, I mean, it's a big marmot, but it still is little, makes that loud noise and very high pitch. You can see its size in relationship to flowers. It's possibly one of the biggest marmots, I believe, in the US. And they love flowers. Here it is, eating more flowers. More flowers. This is a mountain goat, which is really not related to goats. Rocky Mountain goats are actually related to antelopes and gazelles. So keep that in mind. They molt in the spring, so they start shedding extra wool because they don't need it. It's warm for them. They need the wool in the winter, but not in the summer. That was a baby. Here we have the same baby playing with an older relative or friend, but you can see how much this one has shed their wool. This is a big horn sheep, very characteristic also in this area. You can find them very easily. Actually, those Rocky Mountain goats and this big horn sheep were by the Logan Pass area. So I was taking a picture of this one. I turned around. I started shooting this guy, and then I realized, oop, he's really closer than what I would like. And then I stopped shooting. But he had an intense look. Obviously, these guys are male. This is a female moose. I did see a lot of male moose as well, but they were never under good light. She was more cooperative. The light was a lot better. She had a baby or young moose somewhere, but at some point, they're solitary animals. At some point, the cub goes away and she stays by herself. And she was having a blast. This is Manny Glacier Fish Lake. She was having a blast eating a lot of aquatic plants. And you can see here, enjoying her snack. And now comes the start of the show for me, the grizzly. You can tell it's a grizzly, not because of the color of the fur, but this hump. This is the hump that is characteristic of grizzlies. And yeah, you have to be careful though, because they can certainly kill a human being. They also have very long nails, a lot longer than black bears, but certainly I didn't stop and look at their nails. This is a female grizzly. She had a collar because she had a cub. And the rangers monitor all the female grizzlies with offspring just to be sure that photographers are safe. As soon as this girl went very close to, she was by the meadows of the Going to the Sun Road. As soon as she was very close to the Going to the Sun Road, there went the rangers, as I said, because there were lots of photographers, everybody would stop, start taking pictures, and the rangers wanted everybody, the grizzlies and the humans, to be safe. Here she is eating a lot of huckleberries. The rangers told me the grizzlies in Montana, in Glacier, they eat lots of huckleberries and lots of fish. And in comparison, grizzlies in Yellowstone are more carnivorous. They eat more meat. It's interesting, but that's basically what kind of food is available to them. And I'm very happy they like huckleberries and not meat as much. And this is another grizzly bear. And with this, I show you the pictures of the wildlife. And I end the presentation. This is my information again. Any questions, please reach out to me. I have no problem in answering questions. And now if you have any questions about any of the pictures, locations, maps, astro, anything, I can answer them now. There's time for those questions.
Excellent. Let's jump right into it, Imma. Thank you so much. Some wonderful information. First question we have here is, you were talking about the glaciers and the reduction in number of glaciers. Someone asked if perhaps you know why the number of glaciers has decreased from 80 to 35 to 26. Is it something to do with global warming? Is there something else at play? What's happening?
Yes, global warming certainly has an impact, but also the glacier sizes fluctuate because when the winter comes, the glaciers kind of get replenished with the snow, which kind of protects the ice. So in winter, because they're measured by being bigger than 0.1 square kilometers, maybe in winter they just go back to be bigger and then they shrink. So they kind of go bigger, smaller, and eventually they might just drop that size. So all this, yes, is due to global warming, but also, as I said, in the winter, they get out of the snow, but snow is not ice, and glacier is ice. So yes, all these factors have an impact in the size of the glacier.
Wonderful. Now, we got another question related to the long exposure shots. When it comes to those long exposures, roughly how long are you typically exposing for? Is there a set amount of time or does it vary from image to image?
That's for astro, I'm guessing. So my settings tend to be, when I'm not tracking, about 2.8, about 10 seconds, because I don't want my trails, my stars to trail. Maybe 13 maximum. I'm shooting at 14-24 millimeter on a full frame camera. I try to keep it 13 just because I really want pinpoint stars. So the ISO is what I change, because the ISO is basically what allows me the flexibility of capturing more or less light. And it's depending on the light pollution. If an area like New Jersey, when I shoot here, there is a lot more light polluted, my ISO is going to be a lot lower, like 3200, because if I go high, I'm going to capture a lot of light pollution. In Montana, I don't have to worry. Basically, none of these national parks I have to worry. I have shot even ISO 8000. And that's the reason why I stack my pictures. I never take single shots just because at ISO 8000, basically what happens is you're going to have a very noisy image. So within 3200 to 8000, that's where my ISO ranges, and it depends on the light pollution, because the aperture is going to be 2.8 or even bigger opening, depending on your lens. I don't want to go slower than 15 seconds. I have even shot at 50 millimeters. I like actually 35 millimeters. That's the lens I really like, or the focal length I really like. But basically, that's the ISO. The ISO is where I have some flexibility.
Got it. Now, Sid's asking, what camera settings do you use for stacked images for something such as Milky Way photographs? How many stacked images do you typically use, and what software do you use to combine the images all together?
Mm-hmm. So usually, and in this, I usually prefer tracking my pictures. But as I said here, I wanted to be efficient. So I shot about 20 pictures of the night sky, and then 10, just because I wanted to go elsewhere. So I took those dark shots. And a dark shot is basically you put the camera lid back on. So it's a dark shot. And I just shot them while driving from or hiking back or going somewhere. I was taking my dark shots. So basically you take light shots so you can stack them, and your dark shots are your baseline for the noise. So the software can take all those pictures together, identify the noise, and eliminate it. So the software I use, because I have a Mac, is a Starry Landscape Stacker. If people have a PC, they can use Sequator. They're both equally good. Maybe Starry Landscape Stacker is slightly bit easier. It's not that the other one is any challenging. It's just that the software tells you more things, whereas you have to enter that information with Sequator. I think that was it.
Got it. Now, here's an interesting question. Nonstop, how long would it take to drive from the main entrance through the loop and onto the other side?
Depends on traffic. At night was a lot faster than during the day. And during the day at midday was impossible, really. I had to drive several times around Logan Pass just to be able to go in the parking lot to park. It could take 2 to 3 hours. And it's not a big, long road, but I think the speed limit was like 25 miles an hour, something like that. And sometimes you wouldn't even that fast. That would have been fast. And at night it was challenging because I almost ran into a lot of these big horn sheep. So, and actually I even saw a porcupine, which are in danger of extinction, but of course at night, who can shoot a porcupine? So, but yes, it takes 2 to 3 hours. And as I said, they actually limit the entrance of the park. It's ticketed entrance. You have to reserve that spot. So, and some people were upset because they would get there and they couldn't get in the park. So if you go in there, double check. If you need to get those tickets to go in the park, they're easy to get. They're not really difficult, but it does help a lot to be able to drive in the park and park. What do you do? How can you shoot anything if you can't park? Okay.
So I know you mentioned that for the most part, a lot of what you shoot is with a 50, but you prefer a 35. Cecil wants to know, what lens do you use the most for most of these images that you capture?
Okay, here it was the 14 to 24 Sigma Art 2.8 lens and the 35 millimeter Nikon Prime. But now I have the Z7 II that I astro modified. And now I actually like shooting with the 24 to 70 millimeter 2.8, very expensive lens, but I think it's worth it. I also still use the 14 to 24 Sigma, but I really love the Z lens 24 to 70 Nikon 2.8.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, one last question, settle it for all of us. I know you said you're a huge Yogi Bear fan, but who would win in a fight? Would it be Yogi Bear or Winnie the Pooh?
Yogi Bear, no question. They have the Spark Rangers with Yogi.
That's right. And, so maybe it's better to ask, is it Yogi or Smokey?
Yogi. I grew
It's
up.
got to be Yogi. He's smarter than your average bear, right?
And also, he's internationally known. Smokey is a very different situation.
That's it. Well, thank you for settling that for us. That was the most important question, I think.
Who hasn't heard of Yogi? And Boo Boo. Boo Boo was so cute.
If you do have any questions for Imma, please feel free. Her information is still up on the screen. That is how you can get in contact with her or follow along with all of the things that she is doing. If you missed it in the beginning, she did throw out some information about some of her upcoming seminars that are going to be going on, along with some discounts for B&H viewers, customers, people of B&H. So take advantage of that as well if you're looking to go onto that. I see none of that. This isn't like a kickback thing over here. I'm just letting you know, if you've been thinking about it and interested, she's been gracious enough to throw in a little discount there. We all like to save money. So if you do want to rewatch it and you missed any of it, you can go to vimeo.com/bheventspace and rewatch it there. But that is all the time we have for tonight. Imma, thank you again for being here. We really appreciate it. And thank you to everybody at home. We'll catch you on the next one. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, Scott.